President Trump is denying the results of Georgia's hand recount one day after President-elect Joe Biden was declared the certified winner in the state. Mr. Trump took to Twitter this morning saying, quote, "Big voter fraud information coming out concerning Georgia. Stay tuned." Of course, no evidence of voter fraud has come to light in Georgia or anywhere else in any sort of level that would have had any impact on the election results. On Friday, Georgia's Republican Secretary of State Brad Raffensperger announced that Joe Biden had definitively won the election there. Another Republican, Governor Brian Kemp, has certified the results, but has not yet endorsed them. He says this paves the way for the Trump legal team to pursue additional options. The questions surrounding the election process in the state bringing up issues for two critical runoffs in January. Both of Georgia's Senate seats are up for grabs. These two races will determine which party controls the Senate when the Biden administration takes office. Stephen Fowler joins me now from Atlanta, Georgia. He's a political reporter at Georgia Public Broadcasting and the host of the podcast Battleground, Ballot Box. Stephen, thanks for being here. So now that the election results have been certified in Georgia, the Trump administration can, in fact, make one last push for a second recount. How likely are we to see that happen, and what would those next steps entail?
Well, that's right, Lana. We've seen so far Georgia undergo a risk-limiting audit, which resulted in 5 million votes being hand-counted by thousands of workers across the state over the span of about a week. Now that the results are certified, the president can ask for a recount, which would have all 5 million of those ballots again counted, this time through high-speed scanners. And it's because he's within a half a percentage point of Joe Biden in the state. He has until Tuesday, close of business, to do that, and at which point 159 Georgia counties would get back to work counting those ballots for a third time.
All right. Well, even after President-elect Joe Biden's win in Georgia was certified on Friday, and possibly even after this additional recount, if it happens, the president has continued to make baseless claims that he won your state. What impact, I'm wondering, is this having on Georgia's Senate runoffs? And is this an attempt to discredit the election process in Georgia ahead of those crucial races?
Well, it absolutely is an attempt to discredit the way things are run, because you have to remember Georgia has a Republican governor, a Republican Secretary of State, Republican State House and Senate that passed these laws that govern the election and picked Georgia's new voting system. So Republicans have been in charge of this entire process. So to make the claims that there's some sort of fraud or nefarious Democratic plot would have to get rid of a lot of information about how things actually work. As far as the Senate runoffs, there are some rumblings that Republicans are worried that President Trump's rhetoric and other top Republicans saying that the system was rigged or that there was problems could end up depressing turnout ahead of these key runoffs. Because the runoffs are happening over the holidays, a lot of vote-by-mail action is going to be happening in this election, and Republicans that I've talked to don't necessarily trust that system. So when every vote will count in these two seats, you could end up seeing some Republicans sit this one out.
Well, as you mentioned, Secretary of State Brad Raffensperger is a Republican, but he has faced backlash from Trump supporters, including calls to resign, death threats after he certified the election results. In a press conference on Friday, he had this to say about the outcome in Georgia. Let's listen.
Close elections sow distrust. People feel their side was cheated. We saw this from the Democrats in 2018, and we see this from Republicans today. Working as an engineer throughout my life, I lived by the motto that numbers don't lie. As Secretary of State, I believe that the numbers that we have presented today are correct. The numbers reflect the verdict of the people, not a decision by the Secretary of State's office or of courts or of either campaigns.
How significant, Stephen, were these remarks about the election results in Georgia?
Well, very significant. In this time of a very, very tight election where you see, the margins in Georgia, less than 13,000 votes, it's very important that we've had throughout this entire process in Georgia a constant stream of information from the Secretary of State's office from the voting system implementation manager managing the logistics of all of the electoral processes, that we have seen time and time again the factual, correct information about how Georgia's elections are run. There have been countless questions asked from people about the system, the process, the counts, where this came from, that came from. And so to hear the state's top election official calmly explain that Joe Biden did, in fact, win the state of Georgia should go a long way to assuaging some Republicans' concerns that things aren't right, and has gone an even longer way for Democrats who have questioned the way the state's election integrity was ahead of time to calmly explain the facts and hopefully have more trust in the January 5th runoff.
Yeah, it almost sounded like, as a Republican, that there was a tone of like, hey, guys, I understand that this was not what we wanted, but this is what we got. I want to talk to you a little bit more, Stephen, about the Georgia Senate races, the runoffs that are going to take place in January, because they are ultimately going to determine who takes control of the Senate. There's a lot of states that are used to holding in their hands the balance of power for the entire nation, like Florida, for example. Georgia's not usually one of those states. How are Georgia voters feeling about the fact that whether they choose 2 Democrats or 2 Republicans or split the vote, that might make a tremendous difference in American history in terms of what the Biden administration is actually able to accomplish?
Well, Lana, people have been saying that Georgia is the center of the political universe, but it feels a little bit more like a black hole, pulling everyone's attention in, pulling in money and mailers and campaign surrogates. You can't go 30 seconds on TV without seeing a campaign ad from any one of the 4 candidates that are there. I've been getting dozens and dozens of mailers for the runoff, and it hasn't even been certified results for 24 hours yet. And so it's a bit surreal to have Georgia, a state that has been reliably Republican for longer than I've been alive, now in this conversation, helping Joe Biden over the top, potentially having control of the U.S. Senate here. And I think Georgia voters are a little bit weary of all of the campaigning and all of the ads and things, but both Democrats and Republicans do recognize the huge gravity of this election, and that's why you're seeing millions and millions of dollars poured in here.
Yeah, indeed. I grew up in Iowa, so I'm very used to that inundation of political ads, but it is something new for Georgia. Well, President-elect Joe Biden is in fact the first Democrat to flip the state blue in nearly 3 decades. As you mentioned, these higher state offices all held by Republicans. Both of those Senate seats were Republicans. And now we're looking at the possibility of the 2 Senate seats flipping blue as well. How surprised are you that this is even part of the conversation that we're having in your state?
Well, I'm not very surprised at all. I've been covering Georgia politics for the past 2 or 3 years, and what you've seen within Georgia is a noticeable shift in demographics, in ideology, in the type of infrastructure that both campaigns are putting in. That Georgia isn't necessarily a blue state, even if these seats flip. It's a very, very purple state that you could see within the next decade flip to blue. But in 2018, Democrat Stacey Abrams came within 55,000 votes of winning the governor's race. Joe Biden won the presidential race by about 13,000 votes. And that's been because Georgia's seen a huge population growth, especially in the metro Atlanta area, of younger, more diverse residents that tend to vote Democratic. You've seen investments from the Democratic Party in metro Atlanta and other metro areas of the state, but also in rural Georgia. You've seen those margins slip from maybe being 85% for President Trump in 2016 to closer to 75%. And every vote does add up. And it's just been a little bit of demographic destiny, but also the organizing brought on by the president.
All right. Stephen Fowler, very interesting stuff happening in Georgia. Thank you for joining us.